And our panel today is about eye tracking in video games. We want to talk about opportunities and how we can bring together these opportunities with privacy. And my name is Murat Karaboga. I'm a senior researcher at Fraunhofer ISI in Karlsruhe, Germany. And I've been doing technology assessment and privacy research for the past 13 years. Before we head to our panelists, we also have one panelist online and two here right next to me. Before we head to our panelists, let me briefly introduce you to what eye tracking actually is. And so you can have a small idea about it. So eye tracking refers to the recording and capturing of a person's eye movements. These eye movements mainly consist of fixations, so what we fixate our gaze at, and saccades. This is when our gaze jumps from point to point. And until a few years ago, it was mainly used in laboratory research, but due to recent technological developments, it's more and more used in modern head-mounted devices, such as VR headsets, which are mainly used in the gaming entertainment sector. And some developers are HTC, Meta, Varjo, and also Steam is going to bring out some VR headsets with eye tracking included soon. And it is mainly used to move around the head of your avatar in the game when you gaze at things, but it can also be used to enhance the, support the graphics card of the game, so the game is faster and you don't need as strong hardware as you needed before. This is called co-weighted rendering, and it also brings privacy risks with it. I don't want to spoil too much, but it can be used to draw conclusions about your emotions, about mental, physical, and some other states. So this is what we want to talk about. And our panelists will now start to give some insights into a few short questions. And beforehand, I would like to shortly introduce them. I'm going to start with Michael Raschke, who is online. Can we maybe show him? Yes. Hi, Michael. Great to have you with us. Michael Raschke studied physics at the University of Stuttgart and University of Heidelberg in Germany from 2009 to 2015. He was researcher at the WIS and developed new methods and technologies for the evaluation of visualizations. He is a worldwide known expert for the visualization-based analysis of eye tracking data, author and co-author of more than 40 publications in this field. Today, together with Michael Werner, Michael Raschke is CEO of Blickshift, a company based in Stuttgart. Michael, can you please explain what eye tracking means for you and your company? We don't hear you yet. A moment, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful.
No.
Very good. Now you should hear me.
Yes.
In one or two sentences, for me, eye tracking means the opportunity to do something that no one on the planet has ever done before. But in a way, and this is important, and so that's why I'm so happy to be part of this panel and to be here, at least virtually at the conference, to do that in a way that is consistent with our European values, especially the values of the Enlightenment.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael, and welcome again. Then we have Teresa Krampe. Teresa is a postdoc at the International Center for Ethics in the Sciences and Humanities at the University of Tübingen. As part of the Pretina project, she examines the ethical dimensions of privacy within digital games and VR environments. And my question to you, Teresa, is what can ethics offer in bringing together privacy and the opportunities, VR worlds, and everything together?
Right. Good morning. Thanks for having me. Hope you can hear me. So as ethicists, what we care about primarily is the people and the democratic values that we have behind basically the data and the software. So we are interested in creating eye tracking solutions that serve the interests of users. And ethical eye tracking can then also mitigate the risks that we will talk a bit more about later in terms of privacy infringements, in terms of data collection. And that has the potential then to also increase the trust in the products that we create. So this year, actually, we conducted a study at Gamescom, and that confirmed that gamers do value their privacy. So ethics in this way can be actually a way of creating more trustworthy and then in the end more valuable products that are in the interest of both the users but also the game developers and the industry.
Great. Thank you, Teresa. And finally, we have Christian Gemin. Christian has a background in legal sciences and has been working at the University of Kassel since 2011. He earned his doctorate in 2013 on issues of fundamental rights-based technology design, and in 2023, his habilitation on the interactions between fundamental rights and digitization. Since 2021, he is also part of the coordination and moderation of the platform Privacy, an initiative funded by the German Federal Ministry of Research, Technology and Space to support technological development that serves the common good. He is also currently a visiting scholar at the Graduate School of Social Data Science at Hitotsubashi University, Tokyo, Japan. Christian, can you tell us what data is captured by eye tracking and what is the legal framework for this? I think you have brought some slides,
Yeah, if we could
which
show
we would
those.
like to have on the screen now. Thanks.
Eye tracking captures a lot of information directly, as you can see on the left side of this illustration by Krüger, Lutz, and Müller. From facial attributes to iris characteristics, pupil properties, eye status, eye movements, and eye opening and closure. And from this, in turn, a whole host of information can be inferred. You can see that on the right side of the slide. This includes personality traits, cognitive processes, even skills and abilities, and much more actually. Special categories of personal data and therefore Article 9 GDPR may also be involved, which would of course preclude legitimate interests as a basis for processing. We can talk about this a bit later. There is, for instance, health data, since eye tracking can reveal diseases like Parkinson's. You can see that on the upper right. This can then be combined with other data. If you could switch over to the next slide, please. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Other data like gameplay, behavior, play duration, or account data. And as a whole, we get a data set that can provide comprehensive insight into a player. It enables predictions about future behavior and so on. It should, however, be noted that the potential for data collection is not homogeneous, and it depends on individual factors such as the scenario at hand, the users themselves, and of course the sensors that are used. Still, I would say that eye tracking is generally much more intrusive than it may seem at first glance, and no pun intended. It greatly enhances the privacy risks that are inherent to gameplay analysis in the first place. With online connectivity, video games have evolved to become a highly monitored environment. I think we can say that game developers nowadays know a lot more about players than they used to, and eye tracking adds another highly invasive layer to that.
Great. Thank you, Christian. Now we are gonna head over to the panel discussion, and I would like to start the panel discussion with some insights from ongoing research at Fraunhofer ISI, where we analyzed some of these games that actually employ eye tracking in virtual reality games. We looked at 38 VR titles that are most played on Steam and which actually also use eye tracking. And we checked how eye tracking is used in these games, and we were curious as to find whether they use it for technical optimization stuff or just moving the head around, or some innovative like game improvement things. And we unfortunately found out that it's mainly used for just moving your head around. So it's really the basic use of eye tracking. Next, we were curious as to what kind of data is gathered when they do this. We therefore analyzed the privacy policies of all these games and checked what they tell about how they, or what data they use and how they use it. And unfortunately, out of the 38 games, only 2 games made it specific what kind of eye tracking data they gather. And these are VRChat and Rec Room. They have great privacy policies. All others were opaque about it. Our research question was, how do video game companies employ eye tracking data? We also went to the video game companies, asked them, hey, can we talk to you about this topic? And we really got not even one interview. Nobody wanted to talk to us about it, and it was a bit frustrating. And the bottom line of our research is that we still don't really know. So we cannot really tell what the data is used for, what kind of data they collect, what the nuances are. From some people, we got to hear that these companies are not malintended, but that they are in a crisis situation, as many companies are. We had this peak of video gaming during COVID. They invested a lot, and now they have to fire people, let off, and are not really interested in giving interviews to researchers like us. And put together with the data we have so far, all of this leaves still a bad taste. Although I would still say, as far as I can tell based on the data, I believe that the reason why most companies don't talk about it is not that they want to hide malicious practices, but that they don't really know how to employ this eye tracking data. Because the data we have, that they only use it for basic gaze movements, shows us that they don't really make use of the futuristic possibilities. You can have, like, let's say, you can have puzzles in games with that you can solve with your eye movements. You could use the eye data to improve your games. You could see how there are some quests that players should finish in the game, but they didn't look at the space because, maybe it's too dark, it isn't highlighted, whatever. And I think that they just don't really know how to make use of the data. And this is also why we want to talk about this topic today, to highlight the opportunities and also give ideas about how to overcome the risks. And also, if any video game developers are in the room or going to listen to this after it's put on YouTube, we're still open, so engage us and talk to us. And I would like to ask Michael, can you please tell us what you think eye tracking technology is developing towards? What's the actual directions, future directions? Can you tell us something about this?
Yeah, sure. Also perhaps a bit, well, what I can do is I just tell my story. In 2009, I've started to my research career as a PhD student at the Institute for Visualization and Interactive Systems in Stuttgart. And my task was to study the cognitive processes when we are getting information from visualizations. So imagine bar graphs, pie charts, so the typical business graphs. And I wanted to find out what we are thinking when we are trying to understand these visualizations and when we're getting information from that. And the obvious technology to understand cognitive processes when we are looking at something is to use an eye tracker. So we bought an eye tracker from a known European manufacturer. In these days, I don't know, I think it cost around something between 20 and 30,000 euros. It was a lab device or screen with an eye tracker. Basically, eye tracking is working like that you have infrared sensors, infrared emitters sending infrared light into the eyes, and cameras find these reflection on the surface of the eyes and find where the pupil is relative to these reflections, and by that, such a device can find out where it's called gaze vector, so where the eyes are looking at. And this sounds simple, it's very complex, and these companies put a lot of effort over many years into that this technology becomes really easy, usable, and producing a very good data quality. Okay, so what I did is in 2009, eye tracking was clearly only be used in the lab. So I was very motivated as a young researcher. I've done a very large collection of eye tracking data. Then I wanted to analyze it. So I studied physics, and I studied physics because I wanted to learn what is reality and how can I study what reality is and how the world works. And so I transferred that to how we create reality inside our minds. So in this case, when we are looking at the visualization, so very controlled environment. At the Institute, we developed many different techniques, methods, prototypes for analyzing eye movements. And over the years, some companies approached me and asked me if they could use these prototypes for their experiments. In 2015-16, this was mainly the automotive industry in Germany. Where this dream of the autonomous driving was was a hype, where it was the first hype. And at autonomous driving, this handover process between the driver and the car is very important. This was our first target group. And we decided then finally to spin off a company from the Institute, because we learned that not only the automotive industry, but many other researchers, engineers, customers are out there all around the world. Together, we have customers on 5 continents. We are delivering a PC desktop software with which you can analyze eye movements. And already during my first pitch, what I always told the people is, look, eye trackers in the 2000s started at 40,000 euros, and then the prices went down and today we are in the range of 100 euros. Or even less if you think about that every webcam in every mobile phone combined with machine learning is basically possible to track your eyes on your screen. It's not a question of if it's possible, it's only a question if the manufacturer, if a company, if we want to do that. So the prices were really dropping down. And there was another industry where the prices went down. It was the PC industry. So in the 70s, we had workstations at 100,000 euros. Today, for 100, 200 euros, you have a full, very high performance computer in your pocket. And when you look at this market, not the hardware is now where the big money is made, good, except NVIDIA and the AI hardware, of course, they are. But when we think about the PC industry, it's about the algorithms. So the idea is that in eye tracking, with this new type of data, this will also happen. And we decided to go into this market and to become a leading technology provider for the analysis of eye movements, but in a way that is a good way. Also, we do not want to record big eye tracking data in the future when this market really becomes a mass market. What we can see now in virtual reality, in the higher price virtual reality devices, you find eye trackers When you think about these augmented reality glasses, perhaps some of you know these Ray-Ban smart glasses where only a camera is looking outside, so to say, and then you can interact with the Meta AI network. When these companies want to do a very user experience, augmented reality with a high user experience, they have to implement eye trackers. They have to see where the eyes are going to in the environment to present the right information at the right place so that it becomes a very seamless, very immersive experience. And this is where we are today. We are at the beginning of a phase where these devices not only know what we can see on the screens, because this is what the big companies are already doing. They are all tracking what we have on the screen, and together with hashtags and with other analysis algorithms, they know very precisely who we are. The next step is that they know where we are looking at. And to close my statement here, when I started my PhD and I wanted to inspire others about my work, I told everybody, look, what I'm doing is that I can read the thoughts of my users, of my participants. And to some extent, and in the old days, 20 years ago, I found that very fascinating. This was really true. With very basic, simple technological possibilities of the 2010 years, as without machine learning and AI, I developed a cognitive simulation which could very precisely simulate what a user was thinking when this person was looking at a visualization. So how the memory processes were working, where the eyes will go to the next point, and so on. And 15 years later, I'm now really, really worried about what could be possible today if we combine machine learning, AI, the possibilities of these large computer networks and clusters with big eye tracking data, because the eye trackers become more and more affordable, so they create a lot of data. And what will happen during the next 5 to 10 years when we not only walk around with smartphones, when it will become absolutely normal and comfortable to wear augmented reality glasses all the day, recording our eyes, knowing what we are thinking. And to bring that together with my entrepreneurship, I'm absolutely convinced that the only way how Europe can change this future and can influence where we will go here is to do two things. First is we have to develop really innovative, market-leading companies who will become the gatekeeper to this new data source, to something like you might call mental data, eye tracking data. So they must become the gatekeeper between the users, between other companies which want to use this data and the source. And the other thing is, this company or these companies have to be in accordance or have to work in accordance to our values. Because I'm absolutely convinced that if you, I would like to ask you a question before, then Murat, you can hand over to the others. What would you prefer? An excellent eye tracking solution at an affordable price, or an excellent eye tracking solution at an affordable price that is fully aligned with society expectations regarding privacy and responsible technology? And I think this is the big advantage we have here in Europe, because we want to develop the second one. And I'm absolutely convinced that if we offer something like that on the market, it will be a real, real success. Thank you for having me today. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your insights. And talking about the opportunities, I would like to switch to the risks. And Teresa, can you tell us what are the privacy risks of all of this?
Right, so that's a tough follow-up right here. Well, so first of all, let me stress again, and I mean, Michael has talked about this at length, but I think it bears, it's sort of worth repeating that with eye tracking, we have a particularly powerful sensor. So just not just yet another data source, but something that potentially provides access to very sensitive and very personal data. So in this sense, the question of what risks could arise and how can we mitigate them is important to answer both from ethical and also later from legal perspectives. It's not very easy to answer though. And that's because the answer as usual is, well, it depends. And it depends first of all on, well, what are we actually talking about when we're talking about privacy? What kind of concept, what kind of understanding of privacy are we talking about? Are we talking about something that is more spatial, as in I'm protecting my home? Are we talking about user control over their data? And that's actually something that we asked gamers themselves. So we went to Gamescom last year. We conducted a large-scale qualitative interview study. And we asked them outright, well, what is privacy for you? And the answer usually was, well, no idea, I've never thought about this. But then when we sort of conversed with them a little more, we found out that their understandings of privacy were actually very nuanced. But there was no one single understanding of privacy that gamers held, but actually their views were quite differentiated. So what we heard most often was an understanding of privacy in the sense of I want my digital data to be protected, but we also got statements that were more in line with something like, well, the idea of contextual integrity. So a lot of gamers were thinking about, well, if my eye tracking data is being passed on to game developers for purposes of improving the game, that is perfectly fine with me. For most gamers, it was even fine if that concerns sensitive data such as let's imagine I'm not very good at focusing. I'm jumping between tasks, or maybe maybe an even more extreme example, I have a slight propensity sort of for legal or illegal drugs. Most players would still say, well, if it's just for the game developers and if it helps them improve the game, just go ahead. But I might not be as happy if that information gets through to my boss or to my bank advisor or to whomever else. So if the individual user can be re-identified, there is this risk of actual world negative consequences that I might be facing. But even if we can't really re-identify users, we can still sort of think about this collectively, especially in the age of big data and powerful statistics. We can still use the data for things such as dark patterns. So we could use that to create design elements in games that nudge users to do things that are not in their interest, such as spending loads and loads of money on loot boxes, etc., etc. So all of these things are different risks that might be involved depending on what kinds of privacy we are talking about. Now, the second point that makes it difficult to answer the question is that with gaming, we have a very, very complex situation. And I want to illustrate that by sort of going back to the spatial understandings of privacy that I was talking about in the beginning, because that is something we also heard quite often, that gamers said, well, the second I close my living room or bedroom door, I want the information that is inside that room to be private, to be for me to have full control over that. Well, if I have my PC or my console and cameras and microphones and the eye tracker right in my living room, that's no longer possible. So with the head-mounted display, we have the situation that we have access to the body and to the physical space, but we also have a hybridization of both the body and spaces. So to put this in plain words, if I'm playing a video game, I'm simultaneously myself before the screen, sitting in my living room, fiddling with buttons, but I'm also a heroic figure in some kind of fantastical world that is overlaid with all kinds of interfaces that I can play around with. And that also blurs the boundaries between spaces that I may consider more public, especially if I'm in a multiplayer game, and spaces that I might consider very private, such as my bedroom or my desk chair where I'm playing the game. So there it's really tricky to say what kind of information is being gathered, and I might also, as a gamer, not be aware of the kind of information that is being gathered. So I might underestimate the situation because I'm immersed in the game. I'm not really aware of the data that's being gathered. And I might also just think, well, this is just a game. But then our question would be, well, is it? Because obviously VR and game worlds are not set apart from the real world. The question is kind of tricky to answer from an ethical point of view. My bottom line, I think what I want to say is that it's worthwhile analyzing in detail what types of privacy we actually want to protect, because this will then have different implications for what are the risks that are involved, and also what do we need in order to successfully protect that kind of privacy. And again, many of our interviews did say that they appreciated efforts to protect their privacy, and they also indicated that it's worthwhile for developers to invest in privacy-preserving eye tracking, even if some of them said, well, my data isn't really relevant, I don't care, but sort of on a collective level, on a societal level, I see that this is important in order to safeguard democratic values, so I do want this in my games.
Great.
Yeah, sure.
Is this context limited to use of VR games, or is it also with the normal cameras you use when you're playing a game? Is there eye tracking movement in the normal cameras as well, or is this limited to VR?
No, so it really depends. So you can enable normal cameras to do that, but normally nobody does it. So usually it's only in some headsets, VR headsets, that have built-in eye tracking possibility. Mm. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, so yeah, I was saying, just a follow-up question, it's also for context to understand better what you're talking about. I don't play video games. Are there eye trackers on my phone, on my computer? Can they be turned on by some apps? Are they if they are on my phone, on my computer, are they on by default and I can put them on? Can they be turned on by some apps because I didn't realize that the app would have put, or I need eye tracking for whatever. So I just want to understand where is this around
thank
us.
You. Great question. I think, Michael, you're perfect to answer that. Oh, okay. Please, we can't hear him.
Thank you. The eye tracking is not automatically turned on. Also, that's at first. However, for example, if you have an iPhone, you can go to what is it called, where you can set all the system parameters, what's it called? In the German, it's Einstellungen. And there you go to the assistant tools, and you can find that in the internet. And there you can really switch on your iPhone already today, eye tracking. It will guide you through a calibration, and then you can test that by yourself. But it's switched off. It's more sold like an assistant feature for disabled people. So where body movements are difficult, they can control then the screens on the eye with their eyes. This is also when you look at the internet where you find a lot of examples. As Murat said, in the cheaper VR devices, eye tracking is not yet implemented, but in the more expensive ones, there it is. The reason is that with eye tracking, the rendering, so the creation of this virtual world, can be done much more immersive. There are some technical possibilities which are possible when eye tracking is switched on. And the other thing is, and this is probably how they will sell it, is that if you know where you're looking at, the visuals can be, this is what Murat said, what the forward rendering is, can be rendered in a higher resolution, which costs more battery life. But if you know where the people are looking at, you don't have to render everything around you in a high resolution, but only the part where you're looking at, and this saves battery life and makes, of course, these devices much more usable when you do not have to charge them all the time. And then eye tracking is turned on because you want to have a better user experience, probably. As this could be the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. We have one more question, and after that, I would suggest that we, if there are no other questions regarding understanding the matter, I would pick your one and then continue with Christian.
Okay, yeah, great. I was wondering about operating systems here. So in particular, the privacy protections provided on Vision OS by Apple. So my understanding from that is that Apple obscure the vision, the gaze direction data, the eye position data from apps. So they can't see it, and or they add a layer. So they require all app developers, if they want to use buttons or they want to use these features, to have the operating system intermediate everything at all, but therefore keeping the data pretty much from the app. And that's maybe a unique model across most of the providers of these things, but it gives a huge amount of power to the ecosystem of the app developer of Apple that gets provided there. Yet it does then completely stop the collection of this data. Now people might say, research, that's very bad. You can't then also develop games more immersively or interactively and reflect on that without the permission of the operating system to sort of do those functions for you, to sort of evaluate your game for you or to add that kind of interaction for you. I don't know if your projects have reflected on the power that you get from that and the trade-offs, because it feels like that's an obvious platform play that will head into this industry and an obvious privacy defense, but also one that comes with different kinds of power trade-offs.
Yeah, thank you. Great. This is one of our basic hypotheses, and that we think that the platform providers that are also hardware developers like Apple, Meta, are interested in controlling everything. Let's start by the VR headset hardware, the eye tracking modules, the platform where the games can be bought. Meta bought many of the developing companies, software video game developers, and they also analyze the data, keep the data at their hands, and they try to control everything from 0 to 100. And I think that's a big issue, and you can't really get details about this. It's really hard to talk to people from Meta or Apple about this. I got to talk to one guy from Meta last year at a conference, and it was quite interesting. And he basically confirmed that this is what they're trying. But then again, you see that Meta reduced their investments in virtual reality, and this makes you think, okay, what's happening now? Are they not interested anymore, or is it just a economic strategic thing to go back a little bit to then later again come back? And this is something I can't really we don't have the data yet to say anything about this.
Well, Apple's model is very different because they don't have the data. They don't retain the data. So the model of development is very
Yeah.
power. So I'm going to focus on that one with the
That's
operating system.
yeah.
What it uses to give the third-party apps
That's
the gaze data.
yeah. That's what Apple advertises, and I'm when I'm positive, I think that's a cool thing and that they really do it like this. But I mean, are you sure that they don't really use? Is it really? Okay. Okay.
It's just obscure, so it says, okay, apps can put buttons.
It's really obscured,
Yeah,
like
so
technically
apps can put
obscured.
buttons
Yeah.
and say, okay, people look at this and then they click. But actually what happens is the operating system intercepts the gaze data, and then the developer can put an API on the button to say, I want this to highlight when it's rolled over. But the operating system executes that.
Okay.
And then only when the user clicks their fingers does the data get sent to the app. So it's an entire layer that
Interesting,
hides
yeah.
from the app to say the app never get access to anything like you get a Magic Leap or whatever, the Meta Quest or these things. And even researchers can't get access to the data.
Wow,
But
okay,
equally, that means that all developers have to conform, they have to only work with gaze in the way that Apple's APIs
Yeah.
permit. So that's the power dynamic that is the privacy trade-off. Look at that. It's
No, not at this.
the
No.
biggest platform player in that area.
also you had a question. Is it? Can we have a microphone?
Can you please resume?
The what?
Get over to the next question.
Ah, to the next question. Okay. Yeah.
Continue the panel.
All right. Thank you. No, thank you. Okay, then Christian again. Privacy risks from a legal perspective. What can you tell us about these?
I mean, of course, you have all the usual risks associated with data processing, but I think there is another dimension to this. And I keep thinking back about what started the data protection discourse in Germany, really kicked it off, the census decision of the Federal Constitutional Court, where basically the issue was people going from door to door asking people questions like, what do you use to heat your home? And the answers were considered to contribute to complex personality profiles that simply should not exist, or at least there should be certain safeguards in place, which were then, of course, implemented after the judgment. Now we have so many ways to create even more comprehensive, or much more comprehensive personality profiles. And I keep wondering whether data protection law is actually equipped to handle this new dimension. Of course, now we have the AI Act, which adds another layer to this, more legal issues to be explored there. For example, is an AI system that is used for eye tracking, is that also a system used for emotion detection? That would then have quite severe consequences because the core provisions of the AI Act would apply. If you actually look into the provisions of the AI Act, it's not really all that clear. It's explained in recital 18, and maybe I will just read an excerpt of the recital. It says there, the notion of emotion recognition system referred to in this regulation should be defined as an AI system for the purpose of identifying or inferring emotions or intentions of natural persons on the basis of their biometric data. And it goes on to say the notion refers to emotions such as intentions such as happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, and so on. And much of that is reflected in the illustration that we showed earlier, but only to a certain respect. So it remains a bit vague whether or not we are actually talking about what the Commission envisioned an emotion recognition system to be. So I think there are a lot of challenges, and it's not as straightforward as it might seem. It's not just another day at the office with ordinary, as it were, data processing.
Thank you. And may I ask also, so we saw all these different data categories you showed us before. In how far is it allowed to collect these data? So if you just like log into the game, you have this VR headset on, and you have the privacy policy, you have to accept, you play the game. Is it totally okay to collect all this data, or is there any legal space to give you more options about what to collect and what not? Or should you have more options in the future? So, I mean,
of course, when we talk about special categories of personal data, they are afforded a higher degree of protection. But then again, you can always use consent to legitimize the data processing. I think the only real issue that comes into play with regards to the legal basis for processing is that when you have these Article 9 data, you can't use legitimate interests. So there's no equivalent to Article 6, Section 1, letter F, in Article 9. So that's the big difference. And I think you can classify a lot of the data that is collected through eye tracking as health data, at least if the claim is so true that as much health information can be inferred as the papers that we've looked at claim.
So it really seems that we have like two opposite sides. On the one hand, the law that allows to capture everything as long as the companies get consent. And on the other hand, technological solutions that prevent companies from collecting this data or not. So, okay. And, but coming back to like, try to find a balance between opportunities and the risks. Michael, can you tell us what you think some of these opportunities could be that could be made use of, but that are still not really employed by the companies?
Yeah, sure. This is perhaps something what I learned as an entrepreneur when I look at the European Union. How we discuss new technologies in general, we all first look at the risks, which is not wrong. Especially in something like AI and inferring emotions and cognitive processes. However, we should look also at the advantages this technology can bring. For example, we got a request from a not European country. They are interested in setting up a system countrywide for detecting neural diseases very early. So by some kind of a monitoring system. So imagine you go to a hospital with the regular checkups, and then there's a new device checking for early effects of neural diseases, which can be, for example, Alzheimer or other age-related diseases, which could also be something like eye diseases itself. There's something like, it's called macular degeneration, which many people older than 70 years old will get. And if detected early, it can be treated relatively, it's a serious disease, of course, but it can be treated quite efficiently. But the point is that, for example, with these diseases, that many people do not find out that they have it because we have two eyes. And when the field of view is being damaged in one of the eyes, the other eye and the brain is compensating that. And most times they find it out if they have a car accident, for example. If someone comes from the right and they don't see this person or this car because the field of view is being damaged there. And with these early monitorings, with eye tracking as the medical sensor, these diseases can be detected very early. And when we think about our aging society, this could be, for example, a very positive effect on society. So there are not only risks about this technology, but also a lot of advantages. And my experience, since we have customers all around the world, is that other countries are running in front of us, also with this positive impact of this type of technology. And this is something which makes me, as a European country, a bit worried, because I would like to deliver that to my home market, to the people here in Europe, to help them, and not, of course, we are a global acting company. We can also deliver that to other countries, but it would be really great to test and to apply these technologies here in Europe first and also. And you have also always two sides of the coin. There are many good things which eye tracking can bring, but of course we have to be careful about all the so to say, difficult possibilities.
Great, thank you, Michael. And to add to that, as far as I know the interview data, Teresa, I think the interviewees also said that they would be totally okay with giving away that data for game development, if it's not like only to for commercial purposes, like for getting better ads or something, but to really improve the games, to see where I didn't look at and to highlight these spaces and so on. So I think there is some space to bring the let's say economic interests of companies that stick to the interests of players. Could you say something about this?
Yeah. So, I mean, we did get very different answers. We also got answers of the kind of, well, I don't really care what happens, just do whatever. But the largest portion was actually players saying, well, that for improving the games, etc., it's all good. But not if it's being monetized, shared to third parties, if I don't have control over it. And actually, just to add on to that, gamers themselves were quite interested in a large portion of the data. So what we did is when we went to Gamescom, we had a demonstrator with us. So we created a small VR game and tracked people's eyes, and then in the end confronted them with the data that we were able to interpret. And we had a sort of like a gaming profile that sort of combined performance measures and personality, etc. So, for example, the focused explorer. And that's something that players really liked. And I mean, a lot of gamers are also quite competitive. So any kind of data that might help me improve my game, that might also be of interest to me when I'm playing online, for example. So that might be something where sort of interests of gamers and of companies very much align. Having said that, I still think that we do need privacy protection also in the form of ethical guidelines and in the form of regulation. Because when I'm playing, when my eyes are being tracked, I don't really have control over that. I can't suppress my eye movements. So, and if we do agree with sort of this potential of eye tracking to give us access to thoughts, as Michael has phrased it, to read thoughts almost, then that is, of course, something that we do want to be wary of in a way. And, well, just to add one more recommendation in order to achieve that, I think two perspectives are necessary. So first of all, we should take gamers seriously as experts of their own needs and their situation. But of course, we still also need research, both theoretical and empirical, to correct for things such as blind spots that gamers may have in terms of how they imagine the technology to work and how they imagine the data to travel. And then just sort of as a final point, I'd like to stress the potential of games as media. So in gaming, we are dealing with multimodal and interactive media that work through various communication channels. So we have audio, we have visuals, we have narratives usually, stories are being told, but we also act in the game world. So these are experiences that are in many ways kind of visceral and more intuitive. And so a challenge for game designers might also be to mobilize this potential in order to foster transparency, to create awareness about data being collected and find alternatives to sort of the informed consent forms that nobody reads, but do this in a more intuitive, more playful, more interesting way for gamers.
Cool. Thank you. Before I open the discussion, I would like to ask also Christian and Michael, how do you think can eye tracking be used in the gaming industry in a way that both enables privacy protection and innovative business models?
Well, I think what we heard about Apple's approach, and it's not just with eye tracking. I mean, they have this general approach that tries to, well, on the one hand, preserve privacy, but on the other hand, create a data monopoly in a certain way. I think that is a good start. It's one possible approach to mitigate some of the risk. For example, data trading, selling
privacy
of
by
data.
design, data protection by design.
So that's a short answer, but I think Michael can get into that a bit more.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree with Christian. As I think the selling point here is that the whole pipeline from recording to delivering the data to third-party solution providers is fully in accordance to our regulations and to the values. And this is a lot of work to do that. As a company or as companies in this field, I think it's absolutely important that we are in exchange with researchers and with the regulators about this, because I see Europe here not like a fight between companies and regulations. I see all of us as a team. We all want to have, or we want to have the world to be developed in a way that it will become a better place for all the people on Earth. I think this is the big mission, what we as Europeans, and also because of our history here, we really have learned about. And yeah, you can now be very ideal and say, if I only regulate, everything will become true, will become like I want to have it. I'm a bit skeptical if this is working. The world is guided by money and by business. So we have to become the tech leaders in this field, the innovators in accordance with our regulations and our values. And I think then we have a real great advantage here with our products. And to add the discussion about Apple, Apple seems to be here a real great company from our perspective. However, first of all, it's a US company. Second, they develop some kind of a platform. So it's just another platform where we are all depending on, also in other fields. And then Apple, it sounds a lot, but Apple only have 20% market share in the mobile phone market. There are many other manufacturers coming from other countries, especially from China, for example, which have a complete different understanding of privacy. So to bet on Apple I think it's good to look what Apple is doing, but there should be many more Apples with this privacy approach which they have, especially from Europe.
Thank you, Michael. And to come back again to your question about Apple, we looked at Steam games and basically these, and also started looking at Meta, but not Apple yet. So something we might do in the future, but I think the market share in VR is even like 0.5 or something with Apple, or it's really small, because almost nobody has these Apple Vision Pros because they're so exorbitantly expensive. All right, let me open the floor for discussion if anybody wants to ask something. So let's start with you and then here.
Thank you. For me, it was the panel of CPDP. Thank you very much. It was very great. I do have a lot of questions. So I will try to be quick. First, did you make a data subject access request in order to get access to data from video games?
Are you?
Yes, I am.
Are you Jonathan?
Yes, I am. But
great to meet you.
Yes, but
I already talked to Julien yesterday, and he told me about your research. No, we didn't, but it's really interesting what you are doing, and I think we will get in touch after this. And
yes, definitely.
Great to meet you now.
But it was also my also interest to knowing if you did it with for example Facebook or the people who are working on game editors. Did you try, as law scholars, to see if your former students were in the video games industry and request them to have information? Okay, that was not one of my questions. Christian, you said some. You have two questions for Christian. Is there some case law on eye tracking, mainly in video games or outside video games? Are there any? Did you see any case law on this topic? That's my first question. My second question is more a provocative one. You said at one moment you quote the AI as a way to use eye tracking data to channel or to modify the emotions. But per se, a video game is something, it's like a story, and sometimes there are things using telemetric data in usual video games, but for example, in VR games, they might use, sorry for my English, they might use eye tracking data in order to if the player is becoming dull or is boring, to just pump him. So maybe it will mean that a video game may become an AI system. And therefore, a video game which is like a literary, an art, or I don't know how to say in œuvre, something which is protected by IP will become something which is a product per se as the AI. So my question is, don't you think that it may create a new barrier for video games editor if we use a video games? Did I lose you?
As for the first question, I'm not aware of a huge amount of case law that relates to privacy issues and eye tracking, at least not in the European Union. But I think that really relates to the fact that the technology is not as widespread. And I think we can expect a case law with a more widespread use of the technology. As for your second question, that's a hard one. First of all, as video games are becoming more and more complex, that does raise a lot of legal issues that we are not really dealing with right now, because at the moment, at least most games are rather straightforward in how they are structured. But if you include AI technology into that and make them even more adaptive and immersive, I think that that will be an interesting development for role-playing games, for example. And of course, it will make games more interesting when they are able to intelligently adapt to what players are doing. But of course, it creates a sort of a real-world lab where people can be put into all kinds of situations, which can then be monitored, of course, and the data that would result from that would, at least I believe, very valuable to a lot of people. I think we should have a debate on how to actually deal with that. But for the moment, I don't really have a concrete answer to that.
Yes, sorry, it was a tricky question. I didn't want to trap you. I got a last question.
Okay.
Promise.
All right.
We see, for example, in France, but also in California, there is new laws which are coming for age verification, particularly for games. Do you think that eye tracking because one of the two slides there was like we can determine determine the age of the user. Can we use eye tracking devices to determine the age of the people in order to let them to say, for example, you are more than 18, obviously from your eyes, and therefore you can play video games instead of providing ID cards or a picture of your face.
Michael, how granular is the age detection possibility with eye tracking? So
that's a really good question. As I mean, when I record the eyes, I only record the eyes. I could also record a bit more of the face. I think this is what the big tech companies want to do in, for example, Australia.
You mean like the wrinkles or something, or
something like that? Also just from how the face is looking like to find out how old the person is. Basically, all these algorithms will work in a way that they present, it's called stimuli, so different types of visual stimuli, and they measure how much attention the gamer is spending on this area. For example, in our game, Abracadabra, we've been at the Gamescom, we presented different old style paintings. They were hanging around in a room, and the gamer had to do a job with these paintings. They had to put them on place again, and we just measured how much time they spent with their eyes on these paintings. And this was one of the input data to find out different characteristics of the gamers. I don't know if this is something which could be investigated to find out over a longer time how a gamer is visually perceiving. So what where the gamer is spending the attention on to get their DH from. This is the one thing. The other thing which comes now into my mind is with eye tracking, it's possible to measure physiological parameters of the eyes. So what you could do is to present stimuli, like pointing lights, like if you think about when you go to the eye doctor, what they are doing, and to measure reaction times. And with that, since the reaction time is changing during life, to some extent, probably you can at least find out the range of the age. So that's more on the neurological level. So what I want to say is there's a wide variety of ways what I can find out about the users. The physiological, neurological data on the one side, and on the other side, on the higher cognitive levels, characteristics, and so on.
All right, next question.
Okay, Michael Friedewald, Fraunhofer ISI as well. Let me briefly report what kind of impression I had here. So I learned that from a technological point of view, all the elements are there to implement mass surveillance. And it seemed a little bit like a naive understanding of the gamers about their industry, the companies who are all the good guys, flesh from our own flesh, gamers like ourselves doing the good thing. On the other hand, as Michael said, of course, the world is about money. That's little bit what Apple did over decades, saying, well, we are the heart of the counterculture. Though, in fact, they were one of the toughest player in the tech industry. So I'm a little bit concerned that everything is there for a very unfortunate development, and it's like everyone is saying, well, nothing bad will happen. So is that impression correct, or and what do we do about it?
I'm reminded of Microsoft Kinect. That was a camera system, also a microphone included, released I think in 2010 by Microsoft as an add-on for the Xbox 360 gaming system. I think a year or two later, they produced a patent where they wanted to use the system to monitor the number of people in the room, because they also rented out movies virtually. Of course, it makes a difference if there's 2 people watching or if there's 30 or 100 people watching the movie. So they would charge a different price, or they would just simply not allow streaming in that context. And I think this is exactly the sort of function creep that we could see, of course, with other technologies, but especially with eye tracking, with the potential that is there. People might get very, very creative, and that's on top of the things that we mentioned. So there are probably things that we don't have in mind, but that people might come up with further down the line. I think that's a bit of a cautionary tale, that we have to be wary of this function creep. So, it's not a direct answer to your question, but an indirect one, hopefully.
Lisa, maybe also?
I can offer another indirect answer. I think that, while we have kind of spun a bit of a dystopian tale about eye tracking as sort of this window to your soul, I think the real sort of risk comes from when this data is being combined, is being aggregated with other sensor data, with the data that I may have entered into my Steam profile, with the data that my hardware could potentially transfer, what kind of setup I have, etc., etc. And then if all of that is interpreted by powerful analytical tools, et cetera, it's then that I get a pretty accurate picture of, well, it kind of depends. Do I want an accurate picture of an individual? Do I want to target the individual, or do I want to have mass data on groups of populations for purposes of advertising, et cetera, et cetera? So I think this is kind of the two directions that eye tracking could contribute to, but not eye tracking alone. So to have very accurate data on populations that I can then nudge, manipulate, do whatever with, or to re-identify individuals. And so I think that's kind of different things.
All right, thank you. Unfortunately, looking at the clock, we've come to the end of our little time slot. I would firstly like to thank you, Teresa, Christian, Michael, for having you with us here, and also for the audience, for your questions, for having you here. Have a great last CPDP day, and let's meet next year again. Bye-bye. Thank you, Michael. Have a great holidays.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was great.
Bye-bye.